maybe in the west part
Drainage.
or the north. We are Germany's largest area for the production of century because then it became a summer site, a resort, summer residence for very many guests, especially those coming from Berlin, and therefore.
That's what he says. Banamunda. So sometimes you get so pissed off, and I was especially pissed off when Germany lost to Paraguay. So I was like, nah. So I said, I'm going to have a conversation with these guys. Was zum Teufel ist hier eigentlich los? It's like, what the heck is going on? So obviously, that was the case. But what is amazing is that Warnemünde, used to be part of East Germany, under Soviet occupation. And these guys were telling us some stories. And they were saying that you couldn't go canoeing in certain areas. They were saying that you couldn't go canoeing in certain areas. Because if you did, they was afraid that you'll escape, and go towards the Baltic Sea. So while I was there, I decided to play a little trick on my fans because they hate when I speak German in the house. Okay? So I said, I'm going to get them back. I'm going to get some sweet revenge while I'm in Germany. So right in the harbor, direct am Hafen. Right, entlang, along the harbor. So they have these fish sandwiches being sold from off the boat. The boat is right along, docked at the harbor, and you get these fish sandwiches. So I said, so I stepped up to the gentleman, and they're all right next to me. So I decided I was going to order in German. Typical, ich hatte gerne bitte ein Backfischbrötchen. So after I did that, I sort of excused myself. So the gentleman started answering back to them in German. He looked at me and said, hey, the gentleman is speaking German to us. I said, well, go ahead. Answer him back in German. So I got them. I really got it. Of course, I eventually just, came back and, communicated with him in German. Another thing you have to do, and I realize if you want to become more and more proficient, I guess in any language, and, if you want to become more and more proficient in Deutsch, or German, so to speak, you have to always try your best to speak German to German speakers, right? Because what they will do sometime, they will anticipate what you want to say, and they'll start talking to you in English or respond in English. Me, I didn't have that problem because while I was there, all I'm doing is speaking German. I'm not speaking no English. Even though they know that you probably come, that you're probably a foreigner or you're probably a tourist or something like that. But keep in mind, I've also been there in other capacities, so to speak. But me, I'm speaking pure German to them. I ain't talking no English. I think English speakers are more willing to accommodate people who speak other languages. English speakers are more willing to accommodate them and try to help them, so to speak English. But I think sometimes other languages, that they're not as accommodating to try to help you speak their language. Because with English, everybody try to help you, they'll, you don't try to not speak English to people, right? You try to help them out more so than anything else. Even if you may know their language, right? You'll speak in English when you're in an English territory or something and try to help them out with English language. Like when I was in front of the Rathaus, the city council in Rostock, two ladies, they were trying to speak English because obviously, I look like I'm a tourist or something like that. And no, I just spoke German to them, because they wanted me to take a photograph of them. So I immediately responded. I said, "Möchtest du, dass ich ein Foto von dir mache?" So I guess then they realized, oh, wait, this guy speaks German. Of course, from then, it was just communicating in German. But what you can do, if, let's say, you have an encounter, right? And someone starts to speak to you in English because they immediately think that you speak English, then you can request, very nicely request that they speak to you in German. So you can politely say something like, können Sie bitte Deutsch mit mir sprechen? And then they'll say, okay, all right, well, so basically you're telling them, look, please speak to me in German. And sometimes what you'll have happening, like, I feel sometimes they're very anticipatory, all right? I guess just how the language is structured, with experience, you become anticipatory when a sentence is, being said to you or something like that. But German is more sort of known as the quote unquote wait language, okay, as when you're waiting. Because generally when you have two verbs in a German sentence, you'll have the first verb together with the subject. And then if there's another verb in the sentence, you'll knock it towards the end of the sentence. And that is why they're saying it. So you're pretty much waiting for that person to finish that sentence to entirely get the context of what they're saying. So that is why it's called the wait language, as you're waiting, you know what I'm saying, for the person to finish speak. But again, of course, interaction, native speakers, they can anticipate what you're going to say. I mean, it actually happened to me with our tow, with a guy on a tow bus. Because I was about to ask him something simple like, did he grow up here? You know what I'm saying? Is he local? So I started by saying, bist du here? But before I said it, he said, yeah, I grew up. So he kind of sort of just anticipated what I was going to say. Because the entire sentence would be, bist du hier aufgewachsen? Like to grow up in a particular area. But once I said bist du hier, he knew that's probably I'm asking him, oh, are you from around here? Did you grow up around here? And he said, yeah, I grew up. You know what I'm saying? So again, I guess with interaction, he's probably understanding sort of questions that people are going to ask him. And he can anticipate, okay, all right, this is what he's about to ask. Yeah. But as I have said before, and if I didn't tell you before, I'll tell you again, that English itself is also a Germanic language. I know that's very hard to believe, but it is. So people be like, oh, I swear you should be German. I said, okay, but it's like, cousin to English. Why should I not speak German? So it's not that weird. You know what I'm saying? It's not like really weird. Again, the English alphabet and the German alphabet contain exactly same alphabet, same 26 letters, except that German have what you call 4 umlauts. I know, it's hard to believe. It's like, wait, they have the same alphabet? But it's historical. I mean, if you think about it, if you know a little bit about your fundamental European history, you remember that the Germanic tribes conquered Roman Britain. Okay, and that's where English developed from the Germanic tribes. So, German and English are cousins. Basically, they set up from the same West Frisian Germanic languages. They basically belong to the same West Frisian Germanic branch. But that's that. My real beef was the fact that Germany lost. You gotta understand, I grew up on guys like Voller, Matthias, Klinsmann. You know what I'm saying? These were my guys. I always backed the Germans. So it was kind of hard, this year to deal with that loss to Paraguay. On that note, couldn't happen.